I'm going to begin. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rubina. I'm with the academic team. I'm an academic recruiter, and I'm part of Aspen Dental Management. So I'm part of the team, the organization that supports the 800 Aspen Dental offices nationwide. So we're the non-clinical side, and we're here to support all of our doctors and doctor owners to do what they do best, which is dentistry. So before we begin, I'm going to let you guys know that there's a question and answer box below, and you guys can submit questions. And throughout this webinar, we'll go ahead and try to go through all of them and answer them as they come up. I also have a list of questions you guys have submitted before. From when you guys registered. There was a Google link and a Google form, and I have all the questions on a screen over here. So you will often see me looking over here, and it's not because I'm ignoring you or looking at someone else. I'm looking at all the questions to help facilitate this conversation between myself and Dr. Justine Bernard. So again, go ahead and continuously ask questions during, if you have them. There's also a hand raising option, but let's refrain from using that since we can't verbally communicate right now. So the question and answer portion is going to be the best way for us to all communicate and help answer any questions you guys might have. Now, with that being said, I've said a couple of times, we have here Dr. Justine Bernard. I'm going to let her introduce herself in a minute. I'm just going to explain that I'm going to be a moderator for this. And so the focus is going to be on her and her experiences, her journey through prior to dental school, afterwards, and just her career to get her to where she is now working at Aspen Dental. So without further ado, Dr. Justine Bernard, if you could just give us a nice quick intro.
Thanks. Yep, so my name's Justine. Everyone at the office calls me Dr. B because my last name's a little bit long, but just call me Justine. But I grew up in Chicago, and I went to dental school at the Ohio State. If anyone is in the room, kudos to us. But I graduated in 2018, so semi-recent grad. I've been out working for 2 years now, and my first job outside of dental school was actually with Aspen. I decided on a whim to move out to the East Coast, so I'm currently in Boston. I was living a little bit outside of the city, and I just moved downtown. So I am actually reverse commuting, and I practice a little bit south of Mass, like south of Boston and southern Mass. So I work for one practice owner who has 9 practices. And when I first started, I was an associate dentist. So I was basically a second doctor, floating between a couple of his practices. So I'd be in one location like 2 days a week, another location 3 days a week. And then after about a month or two, I was also helping cover doctors who were on vacation. So I got a little bit of a taste of what it'd be like to be in a managing clinical director role. So that's kind of like the next step after being an associate and the step before going into partnership and ownership. So, so I got to, like I said, have a little bit of experience on my own with my practice owner at a phone call away or sometimes in the office with me as well. And then in November of 2018, so about 5 months into practicing with Aspen, I got offered a position to take over a practice as a managing clinical director or an MCD. So I started there. My practice owner helped me out about 1 day a week, and then slowly digressed to like twice a month, and now just once a month. But I've been in the MCD role. I technically got promoted in May, even though I was kind of managing the office on my own with his help. So that was May of last year, and now it's July 2020, almost August. So I've been with the company for 2 years, going on 3. So which is kind of crazy. Time really flew by. So
definitely,
yeah.
Thank you. So diving just more in depth with what you were saying, I know you said you wound up in Boston. Is that where you wanted to end up? What was your hopes when you graduated from OSU, and where are you originally from?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Chicago,
Okay.
and I went to undergrad a little bit south at the University of Illinois. And then when I was in dental school and kind of third year, fourth year, I was kind of unsure of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do as far as practice. At Ohio State, our clinic is okay. To be totally frank, I didn't feel like I had the best clinical experience just because I didn't have the greatest of patients. I felt like requirements weren't very extensive, even though we got, the bare minimum like everyone else does. And nothing to say poorly about my education. Like I loved going to Ohio State. I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. But I just didn't really quite feel ready for private practice or the real world. So I was going to do a GPR, and I applied the summer between third and fourth year. And I interviewed at one program in Denver, and I was just kind of ready to move wherever I wanted. I definitely wanted to get into a big city just because I missed Chicago, and Columbus was great and it was really good to me. It just never really quite felt like home. It was just a little too small. So I interviewed in Denver for the GPR, and then on match day in January, I unfortunately found out I didn't get in, and I started kind of freaking out and panicking and didn't know what to do. So then I kind of like looked at a map and thought of where I could see myself, moving to next. And I didn't really want to go home just yet. And Denver, I kind of had a sour taste in my mouth with the rejection from the GPR. So then I was thinking about East Coast, West Coast, just like looked at a bunch of big cities. And I was between DC and Boston, actually. And then I came out to visit here for like the third or fourth time, and it just, something in my gut felt like home. So I then actually reached out to a good friend of mine with Aspen to see if they were hiring in the Boston area. And he told me that they were not, and that it was gonna be really tough to find a job out here because there's 3 dental schools that graduate, probably like collectively like 200 to 300 students, maybe more than that. So they said that it was gonna be tough, and I just kind of pressed on and told them that I really, wanted to move out here. And one of the practice owners was able to kind of take me in under his wing and take me on as an extra doctor. So it was through the connections that I made like in school when I was involved with ASDA back in the day. But yeah, I ended up exactly where I wanted, to answer your question kind of roundaboutly.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, something in my gut just felt like this was the right spot for me next. And I still don't know if I, want to go back home, if I want to stay out here, but life has been good. So I don't really feel a need to go back yet. If ever, I don't know. But yeah, that's going to help me, get out here and kind of grow as a clinician too. So it's been pretty great so far.
That's great. So I have a follow-up question. Someone just asked was, why exactly did you choose Aspen? Was there other options versus Aspen, other DSOs? Why Aspen?
Yeah, so choosing Aspen for me, I look back at the DSOs that I had met through ASDA. So I said I was involved. Long story short, I wanted to join in dental school. I wanted to join the biggest student organization possible to network, and to just kind of expand my own network with dentistry because I don't have family in the field. I didn't really have many colleagues from undergrad, things like that. So I was trying to think of like how to make the most connections possible. So I got more and more involved with ASDA from first year all the way through fourth year. I ended up sitting on the board of trustees, which was like so fun. But I was thinking about all the connections that I had made because, like I said, when I graduated, I wasn't really quite ready for private practice, and GPR just didn't work out. So I thought working for corporate would be a little bit of a safer option, something that felt a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more help. And yeah, private practice just sounded really daunting. So to me, working for corporate, I was going to treat it like a GPR in my own brain. That's, you know, a little bit better paid, and still having good mentorship and having another big network of doctors. So for me, Aspen, from the people that I had met when I was in dental school, and, you know, some of the events I had gone to as far as lunch and learns or the vendor fair, or I actually ended up going to Talladega with them as a student because they invited me to go to one of the like big corporate events they were having. It just seemed like the network of doctors really loved their jobs, which like, it's like, wow, it's kind of crazy. Like everyone hates corporate, like what? But everyone just seems so happy and so like friendly with one another too. So to me, it was like going from one big family of ASDA, and I wanted to join another big family, like Aspen. Also, the amount of locations they have all around the country, just getting into the network and being able to work for Aspen out here kind of made me think, you know, if I want to move, then I can probably find a job with a different practice owner because I already, you know, have trained with Aspen. I know kind of the way that they schedule. I know how they like, you know, like to manage their patients, like to manage the schedule. So I already knew that I already had my foot in the door there. So I figured it'd be a little bit easier to kind of bounce around. But it really was the camaraderie that I saw within the doctors at the different events that kind of opened up my eyes to see, you know, why are they so happy and why are they having so much fun all the time, and how can I be a part of that too?
That's awesome. I really hope we can continue having fun, you know, with COVID and everything like that, but we'll get to COVID.
One day.
Yeah, one day. So I just had actually a Buckeye ask a question. They wanted to know, how is the transition going from a dental student to a practicing dentist? Do you have any advice for the transition? I'll let you answer that, and then there's a follow-up from there too.
Sure. It's tough, but I feel like if you go into it with, you know, with a hungry mind, and trying to be like a sponge and absorb everything, but I feel like it's overwhelming, you know, when you first start working. However, no one is going to expect you to be an expert on day number one. When I first started as an associate, I was the second doctor in an office. I was never totally by myself. I had another doctor to work with. I was seeing, you know, a couple procedures a day. I wasn't thrown to the wolves and seeing, you know, the amount of people that I see on a daily basis now as a managing clinical director. But again, I kind of worked myself up into being able to take on more patients and, you know, quicken my speed and kind of figure out the flow of seeing more than one patient an hour, let alone a couple patients a day. So in the beginning, it was slow, and they were, you know, super kind to me and let me take my time with procedures. And, you know, I was, you know, able to get up from a procedure, go ask the other doctor for help if I needed it, especially for like crown preps or difficult extractions or things like that. So everyone was very friendly and willing to help, which was nice. But I also got to kind of help set my time. So one of the first things that I did during that first week, they kind of gave you like a sheet of paper with a bunch of different procedures and asked, you know, how long do you need for fillings? How long would you need for an extraction? How long would you need for a crown prep and a buildup and everything? And so, I mean, you get to kind of choose how long do you think you're going to need. And then as you get, you know, more experience, you can kind of shorten those times too. Because in the beginning, you know, I caught myself going a little bit over time, and then I would be falling behind with other patients and things like that. So I asked them, hey, listen, I need a little bit more time with crowns, and I'm not good at them yet. Still practicing, and they totally understood and would extend my times and everything too. So the transition, again, it's more, a lot of it is in your head. More than anything, we're our own worst critics, and we stress ourselves out. Especially because it is, you know, your license at the end of the day, and more pressure, I would say. But it's still, you still work within your means and still practice to the best of your ability with every patient. And people are understanding that we're new. Everyone was in our shoes or in your shoes I was just in your shoes 2 years ago. So I like totally understand if I had a brand new dentist working with me, I would cut them some slack too. No one's going to expect you to be an expert on day one. So I feel like that's kind of the best way to answer that question as far as the transition, is that it can be overwhelming, but if you're open to learn and you want to, just take your time to get better at doing the clinical stuff first before worrying about, how do I manage multiple chairs and how do I build my practice and how do I manage patients, and just think about just becoming a better dentist before thinking about all the other stuff that goes with it.
Perfect. Awesome. So I have another student that just posed the question of, if I work for Aspen or any DSO after graduating, will they teach me things like molar endo, surgical extractions, implants? I feel like I'm ready to go into practice, but I feel like what they taught me in dental school is pretty basic, and I really want to advance my techniques. So
Yeah, so it really depends on the practice owner that you work for, because under Aspen, across the country, there's a bunch of different practice owners. So typically, most practices that you would join would have, a practice owner depending on what part of the region you want to work in, where you want to live. So I feel like whatever you want to learn, I would try and see if your mentor or your practice owner or maybe an MCD that you're working for at first, if they are skilled in what you want to get better at and if they're going to be willing to teach you. For example, my practice owner, Dr. Arun, he's very surgical. He was a practice owner in India. Then he actually came to Boston, got his American license and everything. Is like a 2-year program here. To practice in the States. So he already had a lot of more surgical experience back in India. And here he also has been doing a lot of surgery as well. So he places implants, he does sinus lifts, he does surgical extractions. He kind of does a little bit of everything. So because that's what he values. I also really enjoy surgery. It wasn't really, my first and foremost favorite thing. But I've gotten to get better at it because I've been able to learn from him. As far as something like molar endo, I never actually practiced endo because we have an endodontist that comes to our office once a month. So for that reason, I put all of the endo in his chair, and I actually haven't done a root canal since dental school. Not because I don't like to do it, but I found other procedures to be a little bit more profitable sometimes, but also things that I feel like I'm better at clinically. Like crown and bridge work, I'm finally getting, pretty comfortable with. It took me a while, but I'm getting there. I took an implant course with Dr. Arun last summer. So I've started placing implants. We've been restoring implants. Actually today we did an iTero scan for an implant crown. I've done like an all-on-4 case where we placed the implants and we did the restoration. So it's been kind of like a little like cross-surgery residency for the last 2 years with Dr. Arun, but I kind of lucked into that as with having him as a mentor. So it's tough to really totally answer that question because I don't know for certain, but if you have a certain skill that you want to get better at before you join a practice, whether it is with Aspen or with another DSO or even in private practice, I would reach out to the owner or whoever's going to serve as your mentor to see, what they're skilled at and what they can kind of help you with if that's something that you're passionate about.
perfect. Thank you. They said thank you. So perfect.
Oh, you're welcome.
To go along with that, you did mention, this is my own little pivot, but you did mention having an endodontist come into the office. So how exactly does that work? I know we have endodontists and oral surgeons that come in. How does that work with you, your day-to-day, the whole month? How exactly do they come in and your scheduling and whatnot?
Yeah, so we have an endodontist and we also have an oral surgeon that come to our office once a month. So sometimes we get 2 days, depending on how busy it is and how spaced out it is and what our surgeon and what our endodontist have. But they basically float to a bunch of different Aspen practices in that region for the month. So we have Dr. Lee, who's our oral surgeon, and he works out of I want to say maybe 15 practices. So most of them get 1 day, some get 2 days, and then I think he has Fridays off or something like that. So we will schedule. So basically, when we get a new patient in, and for example, I had one today. I had a new patient that needed a full mouth extraction and wanted to be sedated. I don't sedate. I don't have my license in that. So we were going to put him in Dr. Lee's schedule if he accepted. And with that, our surgeon already has like his day booked out because we're building it in-house. So we get to retain our patients, which patients really love because a lot of them don't want to be bouncing to a bunch of different clinics. They don't know where to drive. They live in the area. They don't want to drive a half hour to a surgeon, whatever. So we get to keep a lot more patients in-house, but then that also adds to the production for the month, which is nice too, as an MCD, and then also for our owner doctor, just keeping the production and keeping, the profit within our own practice. So not only, like I said, for our patients, but also for us as the clinicians, we get a little bit of incentive there. But patients can also come in as outside referrals, but we always want to establish them as patients of our practice before we schedule them with the surgeon or with the endodontist. We can also schedule consults with them if we're like, kind of on the fence of where to go with a certain case. Like there's a couple, wisdom teeth that are super wonky that maybe we should just leave it as is. You can always schedule a consult with the surgeon. Also, if like, let's say I had a patient in pain today, my surgeon's not coming for like 2 weeks, but it's a really tricky extraction that I know I won't be able to do. We can kind of see where Dr. Lee's at in the meantime. He might be at an Aspen location like 20 minutes away, and the patient's like willing to travel there instead. Side note, is the lighting okay, Ruby? Because the sun's going down, so I feel like I'm gonna be in a dark room in a moment.
Is there a light switch you can quickly?
Let me know how it is. Sorry,
Okay.
guys.
Sorry, everyone.
It's gonna be. Is it backlit?
That's
okay.
Perfect. Yes.
Right. Sorry, I'm
So
chilling on my living room rug.
Along with what you were saying about, you're having endodontists and oral surgeons come in, and you were saying for the profit of the office and making sure it's like within the office. Why is it so important that, like if the endodontist comes to your offices and providing profit or, seeing patients and it's going towards, the profits of the office, why is that it's so important to you as, as a lead dentist?
Yeah, so it's kind of a little more into the weeds that maybe if there's like first, second years that aren't really looking to practice yet. But every month we try and produce X amount of dentistry, right? So we do a lot of dentures in our office. We do like obviously like dentistry as far as crowns, fillings, extractions, things like that. We have Invisalign, that's also like a separate kind of profit builder for the practice. We have hygiene, we have specialty. So all of those different segments of dentistry all kind of come to a bottom line of net production for the office. Now, as an associate, even if you're a second doctor in an office, you still have an opportunity to profit share, or in other words, bonus on top of what you're already salaried as a dentist with Aspen. So I don't know how other DSOs work. I've never really investigated or asked my friends who work for different practices, but for Aspen, you do get paid with a daily rate, and that kind of fluctuates, but industry standards usually like around like 500. Some practices can offer more if they're in a more like lower served area, but I feel like standards usually like around 500 a day. And then from there, we actually can profit share on top of that. So if you kind of exceed your minimum of not what you were expected to produce, but just as the office as a whole kind of has, an excess of funds, you can get a small cut as an associate, and then the MCD also gets a little bit of a bigger cut. So that's kind of the incentive to getting to a managing role, which is kind of what pushed me to get into it too. I just kind of wanted to grow as a clinician more than anything, but then also increase my pay and, pay off my student loans and pay off some other debts that I may have, pay for this banging apartment that I just got in downtown Boston. So it is a little little boost under my seat to work a little bit harder. But with that, the surgeon and the endodontist, whatever they bring into the office, they get a cut of their own production, but then that still adds into the monthly production as a whole. So in the end, I could potentially get a cut of them coming to help us out and see more patients in our practice. So I don't know if that totally answers your question.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And then for those of you that, are just joining, MCD, Dr. Justine Bernard just mentioned, MCD is the lead dentist. Prior to that, the step under a lead dentist is the associate. So associate's often working with another doctor in the office, and then lead is usually on their own, kind of managing the entire office, and it kind of preps them to get to that next step if they want to become a partner or an owner, as she mentioned. But just want to by the word MCD just in case, because it's managing clinical doctor, director, and for us it's a lead dentist.
Yeah, and so the cool thing though too is even as an associate or as an MCD or whatever role you have, if you're a specialist, you already get your own like cut of whatever you've produced, but we work as a team. So it's never like I have my column of patients as an associate and I can only, potentially profit share from that. So because I feel like a lot of times with other practices, you get to a certain point where your daily draw kind of goes away. I've heard that in private practice more than anything. After, 2-3 months, you might then be production only based. And, some days are better than others. And that can be kind of frustrating if you're only relying on that as your pay or as your paycheck for the month. So it's nice to kind of still have the salary to rely on. But then working as a team with another doctor, if you're still in an associate role, especially where you will be in the beginning, you can still, potentially profit share, even though your schedule might be kind of lighter in the beginning too. So
you're not fighting over the crown seat or anything like that.
No,
Cool.
No fighting at all.
Awesome. So I had 2 questions pop up. So someone asked, any suggestions on how to choose which office to work for when you're I believe in the interviewing process, like if you want to work with a certain lead dentist or a mentor, because during interview process, you don't really know the style of them, but you will eventually get the sense of who they are and how they work once you actually start working with them. So how exactly do you choose who you want your mentor to be and who you want to work for as coming in as an associate and having a lead dentist in the office?
Yeah, I think that's kind of tough because there's not always going to be like an availability with who you want, from the very beginning. I kind of lucked into my role with Dr. Roon. I actually didn't know his background at all. I had just heard good things, and I was just very eager for a job in general. Because for those of you that weren't on the call in the very beginning, I was supposed to do GPR, or thought I was. I didn't get in, and I kind of was scrambling to find a job. So I didn't know much about Dr. Roon, but I had heard good things. But if you are earlier on in the interview process, then I would, take the time and go shadow for at least a day, maybe even 2 days. I know pretty much every Aspen owner that I've chatted with is happy to take on people into their office to shadow for a day or 2, so you can kind of feel it out and see if, this is going to be a good fit. If there's someone in particular that you really want to work for, like myself, for example, then you would just have to, chat with the recruiter, chat with the practice owner, explain why you want to work with this certain doctor in particular, what you want to learn, what you want to gain from it, and see if there's a way to be set up in their practice. It just kind of depends if they have the need for you in addition to you wanting to learn from them. So if you, like I said, if you have the time, just go shadow and go sit in and kind of hang out with them for a day or 2 and see if it's a right fit or not. I mean, it's tough because you go from school where, you know, you're forced to work with certain faculty and you're forced in environment with certain students and whatever. But you still have free time. You get to go home probably more hours than you're at school sometimes. In the real world, you're working 40 hours a week. Like that's a lot of your time. And then plus commuting to work if you're commuting. So you do want to find the right people to work for and work with. So if you have the time and if you have the opportunity, definitely go just feel out the team, because every office is a little bit different. Just the way the dentist is, the way they set things up, the way that they, you know, kind of make the environment feel in the office. I've worked for probably in and out of like 6 or 7 of Dr. Arun's practices that he has here because I was covering offices when I first started. And I could tell the vibe from one office to the next just based off of the office manager and the dentist and the assistants and everything. So I don't know if there's a way that you can really, you know who you're going to work for and how it's going to be, but ask the right questions. And, you know, if there's one thing in particular you really want to get better at and you voice that, that's the only way that they're going to know that that's what you want. And then maybe they can help find someone in their team of doctors, if they have one, that is willing to kind of teach you and take you under their wing too.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm just gonna do a quick refresher since I've had a couple of people join in. So there's a question and answer portion on the bottom where you guys can fill out any questions you may have, and we're gonna, you know, answer them as we go. There is the raise hand option, and I do see a few people have clicked that. Unfortunately, since we can't verbally communicate, it'd be better if you did have a question to go ahead and submit it in the question and answer box below. And other than that, we will continue. So the next question that's been posed, we're going to transition a little bit along. And the question is, can you choose which CE courses to take, such as implants or sleep apnea, or does Aspen pay for just specific CEs?
Yeah, I feel like as far as CEs go, Aspen does offer quite a bit. We have like a whole online series of different CE that you can take. Obviously, everything right now is online because of COVID. But as far as going to in-person classes, Aspen does offer, you know, a handful of different types of course environments. One of them was Invisalign. We all got trained and certified in Invisalign. I was in school. Ohio State offers that. But we did another training course, so I got CE credit in that. And that was, you know, included. Aspen had paid for that. We did a week-long course in Chicago called EDGE, Engaging Doctors, Gaining Excellence, something like that. So that was basically a week of learning more about Aspen, the ins and outs, but throughout we got CE credit from different lectures. Like we had, I think, one on ethics, we had one on leadership styles, we had one on dentures, so different things like that. So we didn't really get to pick, but we all got to go as a doctor in your first like 6 months of practice. Usually you get to go to this EDGE week-long trip. I don't really know if they're doing that right now, probably not because of COVID, but hopefully they'll start that up as soon as things get better in the country. But then I did an implant course with Dr. Arun, and that was kind of separate from Aspen, but kind of with Aspen because I wouldn't have had the opportunity had I not been working with Dr. Arun. And that was something that I had to pay for. So it kind of depends on, you know, your practice owner. If there's something that you're passionate about, or maybe they want to take a course and they'll bring you along, they might. But it's kind of hard to say for certain. You're always welcome to take your own CE if there's something that you really want to get better at. No one's going to say no. If you need to take a couple of days off to do it, you can. But that's something that you just have to discuss with your practice owner.
Perfect. Thank you. Just to reiterate on that, most of our offices are owned by doctors. So with that, when you are joining an Aspen practice, you are working with a doctor that owns that practice. So like just Dr. Justine was saying, you're going to be in communication with them. And if you have an interest in a certain topic, a certain procedure, a certain type of class, just communicate that with them. And it really depends on like if it's a necessity in the area or if it would be beneficial. So if it's a course that doesn't really pertain to that location and you're really not seeing any patients, they might say, you know, maybe that's something you might have to do on your own. But if it is something that they would see as a benefit to you as a growing dentist or to the practice, I don't see why they would say no, but it would just be a discussion with that individual owner since we have so many owners and so many practices. So it's a good thing to even ask when you're in the interview process or shadowing process to see, you know, if they would be open to certain types of things that you are interested in. So let's see. So someone's asking, because of your experience of not going to residency and going right into Aspen, would you suggest doing a GPR or an AEGD, or just go practice directly based on your experience?
Yeah, so it's tough to say. I feel like if you still want to do a GPR route, I mean, obviously, I'm going to be a little bit biased because I didn't have that opportunity. I was one of those people that I only want to do a GPR if it was like one of the best GPRs in the country. I wasn't going to just do a random GPR or AEGD in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, and just do it for a year just to say I did it. I wanted to do one because I wanted to get better at my skills and be busy and go to a program that had a really good reputation and one that I knew was going to be worthwhile to take that pay cut for the year. So that's kind of why I was more selective in my choices and my decision in not just doing a random GPR. So with that, I feel like if that's still a route you want to go, definitely do your research and see if it is going to be worthwhile for you or not. Because I had a lot of friends in my class that actually they went GPR route and they were kind of unhappy, or, you know, 6 months in, they realized, wow, I actually know more than I thought, or wow, I wish I was getting more paid more now, like my friends are who are in practice. So it's tough for me to really say for sure, because everyone's different. So if you're still very gung-ho about GPR, or maybe you're starting one soon, or, you know, you're like a third, fourth year applying, then I would say if that's something in your heart that you feel like is going to really help you develop your skills and your confidence, go for it. But speaking on the other half of the question, the fact that I didn't feel like I really missed out. Because I did have such a great mentor who taught me the things that I wanted to learn in a GPR anyways. I would have loved to, you know, learn more like molar endo and things like that, but I just don't see it as beneficial to my practice now based off of the way I treatment plan and the types of patients I'm seeing. And because I do have specialists that I can refer to now too. So I don't feel like I really missed out on much. I think I still could have benefited from it, no doubt. But I feel like the skills that I would have learned in a GPR, I'm now learning just in practice and from my mentor and from CE courses that I'm taking. So everyone's different. So if that's something that you still really want to do, I say totally go for it. There's no right or wrong answer in that. But if you go straight into practice, you'll be surprised at the amount of skills you do have and how quickly you're going to get better. It takes a little bit of time, but even in the first 6 months of practicing, you like look back at where you started, and then you're a year in and you're like, wow, I'm so much better than I was last year. And now I'm 2 years in, a little bit over 2 years. And even from this year, from last year, I realized how much faster and how much of a better dentist I've become. So with everything in life, like you get better the more you practice and the more you do things repetitively. So even a couple months in though, you'll see what great strides you've already made if you do go practice route instead of a GPR.
So going along with that, you know, gaining the confidence and all of that, what do you do? Someone asked, what do you do if you're stuck? Do you have your owner doctor to access? Are they easy to reach? What exactly do you do in those kind of situations?
Yeah, so I'm lucky that my practice owner is very available. I feel like most are because, again, at the end of the day, your success is a sign of their success too. So they want to be there for you if they're not busy in their own procedures or in their own days or whatnot. I feel like at most, if I was really stuck in a procedure or not sure what to do, and Dr. Arun wasn't answering me, then I could reach out to some other colleagues that I have. We have a team of dentists out here, so I can reach out to a couple of different MCDs or just send out like a group text to all the MCDs with Dr. Arun's team because we're all pretty close. I have other dentists even within the Aspen network that don't work in my practice owners' practices that I've reached out for help sometimes because they kind of see the similar procedures that I'm seeing. So I can always reach out to them. I have my surgeon's number. I'm not sure I understand. My watch, sorry. I have my surgeon's phone number too that I can call him. I have Dr. Sleemer endodontist phone number. I can call him with questions. I'm always sending them photos of x-rays and they're almost always willing to help out. Again, as a young dentist, the more experienced dentists, they kind of know what we've been through and they've been in our shoes and they don't want us struggling and having our patients struggle either. Worst case, if I'm really stuck with something, then I'll usually just reschedule the procedure on a day that Dr. Arun can come into the office and help me out. Recently happened. We had an overdenture case and processed the denture and it just wouldn't snap onto the locators. And I was just like, it's one of the first ones I've done. I don't really know what to do from here. So Dr. Arun was in my office like the week after and I asked the patient, I'm like, hey, like, if you don't mind, we're just going to reschedule today. And more often than not, they get it. Like, we have fresh faces. It's not, totally not obvious that like we're young and sometimes they can like smell the fear in our faces. But a lot of patients are pretty understanding. And they still, want the best care for themselves too. And I feel like if you voice it in a way like, hey, listen, like, I'm kind of stuck here and I feel like you'd be better served with, my practice owner who has more experience in implants or more experience in surgery or whatever it is, then you just got to kind of let them know. As far as like a surgical extraction that's gone south, it's happened to me a couple times. The first time was terrifying. It was on like a Friday afternoon and we don't even work Friday afternoons and kind of freaked out. And I like called Dr. Arun and he was like, you know what, just give the patient some antibiotic pain meds and we'll see the patient on Monday and I'll take care of it. So they're always available. I feel like if you're ever really, hugely stuck, you guys can call me. I don't care. I'm always available on my phone unless I'm in the middle of a procedure. So I feel like there is a network of dentists if your practice owner isn't available, but long story short, most of them do want to be there for you. And because again, your patients are still their patients too.
So you're never feeling like everything's burning down. You're just like, oh my God, what do I do?
No, I mean, I've had crazy days where I do feel that way, but it's not like I can't really bring myself back down to earth.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have procedures that go south all the time. And I don't want to say like all the time, but I mean, you have like a crown prep that, you start prepping and there's like blood everywhere. You can't see anything. You're like an hour behind. You have 4 other patients waiting and you're kind of like, I don't know what to do, like nightmare days. And again, just communication's the biggest thing you can do in those situations. I've had it right now. We're short staffed and we keep running behind. And I've had to personally tell my office manager, listen, call the patients later this afternoon, tell them we're running behind, reschedule. Figure it out. You want to make everyone happy at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, you're one person. So there's only so much you can do sometimes. And people, I feel like, are more understanding than we think they are sometimes. So something to keep in
mind. So I feel like people are more understanding because of what's also going on nowadays with COVID. And you did say that you're short-staffed. Are you short-staffed because of COVID? Have things changed in the office?
Yeah, they have. So With COVID, kind of what my years looked like so far. I was working regularly. January, February, we were finally trending to do like really extremely well in March. And moving forward, I was like expecting to have like my best year ever, like most people, I'm sure, in the world. But we ended up shutting down like mid-March. It was like right around St. Patrick's Day, where that week where everything started going kind of really bad. We were kind of in limbo of, are we going to stay open? Are we not? Dr. Arun has 9 practices, so we were maybe going to keep 3 open and rotate. And it was just like every other day we were getting different news, and it was kind of like a dumpster fire. But we ended up seeing just emergencies that week. A lot of my staff didn't feel safe coming to work, so we actually, didn't force them to. I live by myself. I'm young, healthy. I don't have family out here. I wasn't seeing people that I was worried about getting sick. So I felt safe going to work still. And even throughout COVID, I would have worked if I could have. But Arun made the executive decision to just close all the practices. So some Aspen practices across the country stayed open. A lot of them were only seeing emergency care. But it kind of depended on states. Every state's different. Massachusetts out here is one of the strictest states, and had like kind of some of the strongest regulations. Even starting next month, they're putting another travel ban up, and it's tough. I haven't been out of the state of Mass since March, and it's really unlike me. So that's been kind of tough. But yeah, so we closed in March, and I was officially furloughed from work, which is crazy. You never think as a dentist you're gonna like lose your job. But furlough status basically meant that we were on leave, but we still got to have our benefits. So I still had like my healthcare benefits, but I actually did have to file for unemployment benefits as well, which was kind of embarrassing in the beginning, but then I realized that I wasn't alone. So it was fine. So I thought it was gonna be 2 weeks, and 2 weeks turned to 4, which turned to 8. So I was off for 8 full weeks. But again, because Massachusetts was a little bit slower with reopening than most states. So I went back to work mid-May, and I was super short-staffed. I basically only had me, an assistant, one girl at the front, and my office manager, and then I think we might have had a lab tech a couple of days a week. I don't even remember. But we were doing only emergency care, super strict, 1 patient an hour. When typically we have sometimes 3 to 4 to 5 patients an hour with hygiene. There was no hygiene. So it was basically just extractions and anything we could do without a handpiece. So we could do crown inserts that we had from before, Invisalign trays to insert, denture steps that didn't require any adjusting, just to kind of keep aerosols down. And then beginning of June, we actually got word that we could go back to using handpieces moderately. And then that was beginning of June, and then mid-June to end of June, we got to kind of do everything all over again. So no restrictions now as far as what dentistry we can do, but new restrictions that had started in May. Every single patient that comes into our building, they get pre-screened over the phone. Our doors are locked, so patients can't come in and out. We actually have to go open the doors for them. So we call them before the appointment. We screen them with a bunch of random COVID questions as far as if they've traveled out of the state, if they've been in contact with anyone that tested positive, if they're experiencing symptoms, they'll name all the symptoms. And yeah, if they have been COVID positive, which we had a couple patients that did report that they were, we need to have documentation from a doctor stating that they're negative, and that they're not restricted anymore to live day-to-day life. It can't be a lab result. It has to be from a physician if they were positive. So we've had a couple of those. And then every patient that walks in the door gets their temperature checked. I have now been documenting in my clinical notes all the PPE we wear. I document their temperature, even though that pre-screen form, we put their temperature and it gets scanned into the chart. I just added in my clinical notes just as a precaution in case someone were to, claim they got COVID from our office. Kind of have to write everything in there. I have to wear an N95 mask and then a level 3 mask on top and my loops, and then a face shield on top of that. I typically wore a lab coat before over my clothes. I would wear dress clothes to work. Now I wear scrubs and I still wear my lab coat over. I have a pair of gym shoes that I leave at work, so I'm not bringing those home with me. I bring a different set that I leave at the door at work, so I'm not, dragging any potential COVID to my apartment. Gloves are the same. We have every patient swished with Peroxyl or a hydrogen peroxide solution before their appointment, before we even look in the mouth. So there have been a lot of changes, and the wait times have been longer than usual. We have been short-staffed just because with COVID and just bringing people back, obviously financially, we couldn't really afford to keep as many people because we weren't producing as much. So just as a team across the board, Dr. Arun kind of made some cuts with people from the front, with dental assistants. Pretty much all the doctors and hygienists still had their jobs, and a lot of the lab techs did as well. But some of the extra bodies in the office we had to kind of separate ways with, which was tough. So I typically have 3 dental assistants. I've been working with like 1.5, and still now expecting to produce like we did before. And it's a headache. So just adjusting and having to, again, just give patients expectations of, listen, we're just getting back into the swing of things, like be patient with us. We're doing the best we can and seeing as many people as we can. But again, we're only as strong as the amount of people that we have in our team, and, our attitudes every day. And sometimes we can't see everyone that they want us to see. That's just reality. So.
Yeah. So everyone's been understanding and patient with the process within Aspen and outside, it seems.
Yeah. I mean, we had a patient today even who is a nurse in a hospital, and she was tested positive a couple weeks ago, I guess. And she reported yes to that question over the phone. At least she was honest. Not all of them are honest.
Yeah.
So she was honest with us, and she was supposed to get a cleaning and an exam. And so the hygienist came up to me. She's like, "What do we do?" I'm like, get some document. Like, what are you gonna do? The patient was super frustrated, and we had to tell him, listen, this is a high risk environment, and you tested positive. Like, we can't potentially risk our other patients to get sick knowing that you were. Like, just have someone fax us something over. And she was able to get a fax over within like the hour, and we still saw her as a patient, and she was cleared, and she had been cleared for weeks. But again, I wasn't going to put my other patients or my staff at risk knowing that she did report having COVID. It's just a reality. And I mean, she was frustrated, but at the same time, like after we kind of explained it, she was like, okay, I'm sorry for, being frustrated, but it's reality. We got to cover our bases too. And that's part of why we screen all the patients, right? It's not just to know if they're COVID or not. It's to protect ourselves, our staff, first and foremost, and the other patients that are walking in and out of our clinic. So.
Yeah, that's part of our Smile Wide and Smile Safe program that we have going on. Everything that Dr. Justine had just described, all the precautions, the temperature checks, all of that kind of stuff, we're ensuring all of this is being done so that every patient, every clinician, everyone is safe. We're actually the second largest purchaser of PPE in the nation, second to the government. So we have full access to all of that. Yeah, we are. Yeah. So it just shows how big our network is, our great relationship with Henry Schein. But yeah, we really want to make sure that everyone is safe, including the Aspen side, patients, everyone. So hopefully.
Yeah, I was going to say, not only are we screening the patients, but all of us in the office have to screen ourselves too. So we have our own log that we have to answer the same questions that the patients are asked daily. And we have to log our temperatures every single day. We have to mark if we're having any symptoms too. So that's just to hold ourselves accountable as well. Luckily, no one in our practice has gotten sick. I don't think really anyone across the board with Arun's teams have. I don't know for Aspen Nation, but I haven't really heard of any, huge outbreaks or anything like that, even in some of the states that have been harder hit. So I think everyone's, taking the right steps and being smart in a time where you definitely can be foolish. So I think we've all been, holding ourselves to a high standard too.
Definitely. So we are reaching towards the end of this webinar, and we do have one last question. It's on a lighter note, so that's good. But it's important to talk about COVID, yes. But on a lighter note, so it's non-dental. They want to know, if COVID didn't happen, what would your summer have looked like, or what will be the first thing you do when you have
oh my God. Wow. Okay, so if COVID never happened, in a perfect world, my summer would have looked pretty similar to last summer, which if anyone knows me or is friends with me on Instagram, I'm a huge travel bug. So the fact that I have been cooped up in Boston for almost 5 months now is really driving me crazy. But I travel pretty much every other weekend, and I had some weddings lined up this summer. I was supposed to be home in Chicago a bunch for weddings and bridal showers and bachelorette parties and whatnot. And this upcoming weekend, I was supposed to be at Lollapalooza. If anyone knows that music festival, I go every single year with my girlfriends back home. And it's kind of like a reunion because a lot of us have like separated across the country. So instead, I'm bringing Lollapalooza to my soon-to-be decorated apartment. So I just moved in last weekend, and I'm doing a housewarming party, and it's themed Lollapalooza. So that's what we're going to be doing instead.
Sounds like so much fun.
Yeah. As soon as COVID's up, I just can't wait to fly anywhere, and I'm dying to fly home. I haven't been home in months. I haven't been home since Christmas, and it's like almost like the fall, which is crazy. I'm like, it's going to be like 9 months before I get home. So not that I can't, but I'm kind of like on the fence of, is it worth it? Is it not? What if I get sick? What if I get someone else sick? It's just kind of that weird, like, probably shouldn't be doing that right now. So
definitely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bednarski, for all of this. This was a great session. Thank you, everyone, for all of your questions that you submitted before, and then all the ones during. Those were great. I felt like, we were able to cover a lot of things, but if you guys do have further questions, feel free to email me. You should have my contact information from the registration. And if you do want to ask further questions to Dr. Bednarski, feel free to email me, and I'll forward them to her and forward her contact information.
Yeah, totally. I'm an open book. I'm always available through either social media or through email, through text, or whatever. So don't hesitate to ask, to contact me, or reach out through like Facebook or Instagram or whatever. I'm on everything. But yeah, I was just in your shoes. So seriously, I'm an open book. Just ask whatever, whenever.
Yeah, feel free to follow us on Insta. See our past travel pics and our wonderful times before COVID. But thank you so much, everyone. I hope this was helpful, and look forward to speaking to you guys soon.
Thanks for hosting, Ruby. I hope everyone stays safe, and good luck to everyone if you're still in school or almost done. Hopefully COVID hasn't made it too difficult for you guys, but there's a nice green light at the end of the tunnel, and it's coming soon.
Definitely. Thanks, Justine.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.